For the longest time, I didn't believe in any of this stuff, and I honestly resented every time I heard one of these health and wellness gurus talk about breathing techniques and breath work. For me, breathing was something that was involuntary and automatic, something we didn't need to think about. Then I read this book, Breath, by James Nestor, and it changed everything. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 different techniques that you can use, along with an overall strategy, an overall guiding principle when it comes to breathing. And I'm going to talk about that guiding principle to start with, and it revolves around 2 things: nasal breathing and longer exhales. Start with nasal breathing. Your nose is like your air filter, filters out particulate matter, dust, microbial life, all sorts of things. It humidifies the air, it warms the air, it prepares the air for you to consume it. But for the purposes of this conversation, when it comes to stress and anxiety, the reason why it's important to breathe through your nose is that when you breathe through your nose, it stimulates the release of nitric oxide, not nitrous oxide, big difference. Nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is an antiviral, an antibacterial, it's an anticoagulant. It prevents blood clotting, but it is also a vasodilator. It dilates your blood vessels. When it dilates your blood vessels, this is facilitating your body's uptake of oxygen. It's making it easier for your body to access the oxygen that's in your bloodstream. And this has the knock-on effect of lowering your blood pressure, making it so your heart doesn't have to work as hard. And one theme that I'm going to repeat throughout this video is this feedback, this messaging that's going on between your body and your brain. A lot of times we have top-down messaging. Our brain perceives a threat and it sends a message to our body to activate the stress response. But we can also rejig that message, and we can send a bottom-up message from our body that basically tells our brain, no, actually everything is okay. Your brain would expect, if there was a threat, if there's something wrong, for your heart to be beating uncontrollably as fast as possible. But this mechanism, breathing through your nose and stimulating the release of nitric oxide, can actually have the opposite effect, can send the message to your brain that things are actually okay. We don't need this stress response. There's not a legitimate threat at the moment. The second part of this overall strategy, before we talk about specific techniques, is having a longer, more drawn out exhale. And this is important for a couple of reasons. For one, and again, this goes back to this biofeedback, this messaging, bottom-up messaging to our brain. When we breathe more slowly, we're sending the message to our brain that there's not a threat. But the more crucial piece when it comes to the longer exhale has to do with carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide, when it's at a quantity that is too high, is dangerous. It can actually be fatal to us. But if we don't have enough of it, that is also a problem. Carbon dioxide is the molecule that facilitates the detachment of oxygen from hemoglobin. So we breathe, oxygen enters our body, it attaches to hemoglobin, and hemoglobin acts as the transporter. And it's cruising around our bloodstream with the oxygen, but to actually detach the oxygen from the hemoglobin, it's carbon dioxide that facilitates that exchange. So without enough carbon dioxide, the hemoglobin is just cruising around with the oxygen, and the oxygen is not getting to where it needs to go. It's just sitting in your bloodstream attached to the hemoglobin. So this is actually, for our uptake of oxygen, it's actually important that we have the right amount of carbon dioxide. Often during a panic attack, we're blowing off too much carbon dioxide. This is why you'll sometimes see people, and it's kind of this anecdotal thing, to take the brown paper bag and breathe in and out of a brown paper bag. And the idea being that you're going to recapture some of the carbon dioxide that you're blowing off. There's another issue with not having enough carbon dioxide, though, as well, and that has to do with the pH level of your blood. When your blood is too alkaline, when there's basically too much oxygen present in your bloodstream and not the right amount of carbon dioxide, you start having symptoms like dizziness, dry mouth, anxiety, tingling in your limbs, tremors, and oftentimes chest pain. Any of these sound familiar? The longer exhale helps you preserve the right ratio of carbon dioxide. A lot of times when I exhale, I'll try to do it through pursed lips, and I'll try to do it slowly. Take my time with it. Now let's talk about some of the specific breathing techniques that may be able to help you with stress and anxiety. The first one is called box breathing or square breathing, and this one's very straightforward. You're going to inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold your breath again for 4 seconds. And you can think of yourself painting a little square, the outline of a square while you're doing this. So inhale for 4, hold your breath for 4, exhale for 4, hold your breath again for 4. And it's very straightforward, but it does a couple of things. One, it establishes a pattern to your breathing. Think about this. We're talking about messaging between the brain and the body. If there was a threat, if there was something that was legitimately putting you in danger, your breathing is going to be out of control. It's going to be chaotic. It's not going to be measured. If you're able to put your breathing into a nice framework like what I just mentioned, 4, 4, 4, 4, it sends the message to your brain that, okay, everything's all right. There's not a threat here. I'm practicing very calm, measured breathing. The other thing this is doing is that with these breath holds, so after the inhale, 4 seconds holding your breath, after the exhale, 4 seconds of holding your breath, this is helping preserve that ratio of carbon dioxide that is so important, what I talked about in the earlier part of this video. The second technique, and the one I use the most often, is called the 4-7-8 technique. And this is very self-explanatory. You inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale slowly for 8 seconds. And this is doing something a little bit differently from the other ones. It's also helping you expand your tolerance of CO2. So when scientists in a laboratory setting often are trying to induce anxiety, provoke anxiety in someone, in an experiment, they will actually pipe in a higher amount of carbon dioxide into the air that they're breathing. And straight away this provokes an anxiety, a stress response in them. The higher your tolerance for CO2, the more you have sort of a bulwark, a firewall in place against that stress response, that anxiety response. You basically increase your threshold. And this is something that the only way you can really do it is by breath holding and slower exhales, and over time you'll build up your tolerance to CO2. It's basically making you more resilient in the face of something that can cause anxiety. And as someone that's gone through benzo withdrawal and that is prone to anxiety and a stress response, and someone that has a very sensitized nervous system, every tool I can have at my disposal I need to be taking advantage of. And in this case, this one for me, the 4-7-8 breathing technique, I found it helpful to calm me down in situations, but also to just do proactively, something to do several times throughout the day, a few rounds of this breathing, and to help me sort of build up my CO2 tolerance, in addition to the other benefits that come in the immediate from using it. The third breathing technique is what you would use if you were in the moment feeling an exceptional amount of stress, and this may be possibly due to the fact that you actually have too much CO2 in this case that you need to just offload quickly. It's actually the presence of that CO2 gas. I said scientists in the laboratory, when they're trying to induce anxiety, they actually pipe in a higher amount of CO2, and it actually provokes a stress response. If you need to just offload a lot of CO2 quickly, this is called the physiological sigh, and it's something that babies do when they're crying. You'll see they kind of take these 2 quick inhales and then an exhale, and it basically, when you do the first inhale, it partially fills up your lungs, but the second inhale, it fills up all the remaining air sacs, and then when you exhale, it expels all of the air out. And so I would do this again, inhale with the nose, so you'd be going like, you do that a couple of times and it will calm you down instantly. The double inhale So it doesn't have to be an exceptionally long inhale, but the most important thing is followed up by the second kind of shorter, intense inhale, and then the slow exhale. We already talked about the benefits of that. So you're getting the benefits of the nasal inhalation, the slow exhale, but then there's this other mechanism that's going on just to really offload all of the CO2 that you have, all of the old air that you have sitting around in your lungs, to offload it all at once in one go. All of these techniques are very easy to do. You just have to remember to do them. It really takes a conscious effort, and a lot of the benefits of them, especially things like the 4-7-8 breathing technique, it might not be felt the first day. They can in the moment, they will help calm a stress response. But the biggest benefits I've come to realize with these is using them consistently over time. Several rounds of this breathing every day, trying to practice nasal breathing, always inhaling through my nose, slow exhales, practicing this every day. Over time, you're going to start to reap a lot of positive benefits from this. If you are going through benzo withdrawal, you may not be if you're watching this video. You may just be dealing with anxiety and regular, completely normal stress responses. But if you're going through benzo withdrawal, if you're experiencing acute symptoms, you may find it difficult to get some of these breathing exercises off the ground. I know for me personally, I didn't really discover them even until the latter stages of my benzo withdrawal, when I was already out of acute withdrawal and I was already mitigating my MCAS symptoms, mast cell activation syndrome. When I was in the thick of that, before I had recognized that I had MCAS, my nose was blocked for months. I had so much congestion, I couldn't breathe through my nose. So in my case, I wouldn't have really been able to even use some of these breathing through my nose wasn't even a possibility for a long time. But in the later stages of benzo withdrawal, in post-acute withdrawal or protracted withdrawal, when I was still having symptoms, these breathing techniques had a serious impact. I would say ignore breathing, ignore breath work at your peril. It is a tool that we can use that can be incredibly beneficial. And I know for me personally, I regret not paying attention to this until quite recently. Everyone can benefit from this. You don't have to be going through benzo withdrawal. You don't have to have an oversensitized nervous system. You don't have to have a stress response that's running too hot, constant anxiety. You can benefit from this in any circumstances. These breathing techniques will absolutely help you, and there is no downside. It's worth giving it a shot, even if you're skeptical, because it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't really even take much time. It just takes a little bit of conscious effort, paying attention, reminding yourself. As usual, I'm going to go look for some birds. That's a gray-backed Cameroptera that's making that sound. That sounds like a laser from like a sci-fi movie. Choo, 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 choo. Oh, he just stopped just now. Anyway, I've heard a few bird calls, some bird song this morning that's from not regular residents around here, so I'm excited to possibly see some visitors. And just yesterday, no, was it 2 days ago now? 2 days ago now, I'll show you, I didn't actually capture it on camera, but I was very excited about a bird that I saw. So I captured my reaction just after I saw him. You guys have a great day. Oh man, I missed him, but I missed him to capture on the screen. There was just a bearded barbet. That is it's a funny looking bird. I'll put a picture of him up, but that's what we would call a visitor. He's not normally here around this time. Could be a snowy crowned robin chop. Anyway, you guys have a good day.